Hello everybody and welcome to Scalable Scripts. In this video you will learn how to create authentication using Vue.js. The backend for this video is done on Laravel and you can find the video on our channel. Let's start with it. Let's start by installing Vue.js. The installation is really simple. Go to this URL and copy one of these lines. I will use npm. Paste it to the terminal and wait till it's done. Now the installation is completed. To create a project, run Vue, create, and now we need the project name. I will name it Vue Auth. Now we have an option to pick the default features or to pick features manually. I will pick the default one. Let's wait till it's done. The installation is done now. Let's go to Vue Auth and run npm run serve. Now our web server is hosted on localhost port 8080. Let's copy the URL and paste it to our browser. We can see now that our Vue application is installed. Now let's open our project with our IDE and let's make some changes. The first thing I will change is something unusual. I will change the port that Vue will serve the application. I will change it to 3000. This is not necessary for you, but in my case I want all the frontends to start with port 3000 and all the backends to start with port 8000. And let's run it again. Type npm run serve. So now Vue will start on port 3000 instead of 8080. So it's the same thing. Now let's open the source folder and open app.vue. So Vue has three components: template, where the HTML is provided, scripts, where the logic is, where is JavaScript, and the style, where the CSS styles are stored. Now we need to make some changes here. First thing, we have to remove this content here. And this Hello World component and here. I will also remove the styles here. Now let's add some HTML. I will just paste it here because this course is not based on HTML. You can copy it by pausing this video. And we also need to add Bootstrap. Go to bootstrapcdn.com and copy this line here. Let's go to our index.html and here in the headers, let's add the link that we copied. Now let's see it on the browser. We can see that we have a header now, but we don't have the other styles. Let's also paste the styles now. Go to app.vue, go to the style tag and paste the styles. You can see here that we don't use all the styles, because we are focused more on the JavaScript part than on the styles part. For example, this forgot password here should be on the forgot password component, but since that I will paste all the styles here, all the styles are automatically set, so we don't have to go again with the styles. Let's open the browser and we can see that now it is taking shape. The last thing we need to do is to add a message. Here I will just type a hello message. So we can see the message here now. Now all the styles are ready, so we are ready to create components. Components are reusable Vue instances which means we have to use the same component in different pages. For example, the navigation here will be used in every page, because they'll need a header. Let's create a component for the nav component. First, go to the component folder and create a new file called nav.vue. So we know that component has a template and a script tag. Now go to app.vue and cut this HTML and paste it here. Now we pasted the HTML, but we haven't finished. We have to export this component. The way to do it is to write export default, and we need to name this component nav. So that's it. Now we have to use this nav component to app.vue. The way to do it is to import it here. Import nav from, and we will go to the components folder /nav. And then we need to declare it here, components nav. Here we can have a lot of components, but for now we just have nav. Now that we imported the component, we need to use it. And to use it, we use it as a normal HTML tag. So nav, and we will close it like this. Let's open the browser, and you can see that nothing has changed. So all the old code here is inside this nav component. And app.vue looks much more cleaner now. Let's create another component for the hello message here. I will create another component. I will call it home.vue. Let's write template and scripts tags. And here we write hello. Here we need to export the component. I will name it home. Let's do the same thing on app.vue. Import home from components home. And here we add home. So let's change this text to home. Open the browser and we have an error. The error is the template root requires an element rather than text. That's because in our home component we just entered text. This is not allowed, we need an HTML tag. I will wrap it with a h3 tag. Now our hello is displayed correctly. Now let's create another component. I will create the login component, login.vue. Let's add the default template and scripts. And here I will paste a simple form that has the logic title, email, password, and a button to log in. Now we need to export this module. Name will be login. It's pretty simple till now, but we don't know where to add it on our app.vue, because in order to add it, we need to replace this home with login. Let me also import the component. Import login from components/login. And we edit it here also. Let's open the browser. We have an error again, because our home component has been registered but now used. So we have to comment this line here. If we refresh, we have still an error, so we forgot to comment this line here too. So our login component looks fine now. The problem is that we have to go to /login route to get this page, and on the / route we need to go to our home page. But we don't have a way to do that for now. In order to do that, we have to do a Vue router. Let's do it now. Vue router is another package of Vue that we need to install. Write npm install Vue router -- save to save it also in npm packages. And let's wait till it's completed. Now that it's completed, let's add it to our main.js file. Let's create a file here called router.js. And inside it, we need to import Vue from Vue. Next, we need to import router from Vue router. Now we need to make Vue know that it should use this router. Type Vue.useRouter, and we need to export default route with parameters. The main parameters that we need to add here is routes. And this accepts an array. The first route that we will add is the home route, for which the path will be / and the component will be home. We need to also import home from components /home. The second path is login, which would be /login and the component would be login. Let's do the same for the login. Now everything is okay, we just need to go to main.js. And here to import routes, router from router. So we need to import this router file that we created. And here in the Vue configuration, we need to add the route. So now we are ready to use it. Now go to app.vue and instead of login here, we need to change it to router view. Here the routes will be set based on the URL path. So /path will render the home component and login path the login component. Now we don't need these components anymore. We just need the nav component. Let's save it and go to main page. It seems we got an error. The reason is we forgot to add new here. So it's a new component. So everything works fine. We are in the home component here and we change the route here to login. And we go to login component. The problem is that we need to have a hash here in order to specify the route. To remove that, we need to go to our router.js file. Add here mode history. So we now can remove the hash. And login will work fine. And the main page will be the home component. In the next tutorial, we will create the sign-up component and functionality. After creating the login component, we may want to log in, but unfortunately, we don't have any users yet. But we can create them by creating the register page or sign-up page. Let's do that now. Go to Components folder and create a new register.vue file. Let's add the default tags, template and scripts. Now in the template, paste this HTML. This is a simple register HTML that has a sign up title, first name, input, last name, input, email, password and password confirm, and a button to create this account. Now let's create the JavaScript. Export default, name of this component will be registered. So we are basically finished with this component. Let's register it to the router. The path will be registered and the component will be registered. Here we need to import it also. Let's open the browser and write register here. Let me zoom out the screen. So this is how it should look like. First name, last name, password and password confirm. We need to send all this data to the backend in order to create a new user. Let's see how we can get this data. Now we need to handle the submit of this form. When we click this button or when we type enter. To do that, we need to create a submit listener to this form by adding add submit, and now we need to create another function that handles this submit. I will call it handle submit. This function needs to be created in property methods of Vue. I need to remove the parentheses, it should be like this. Now let's create our method handle submit. For now, we just console log that we submitted. Let's save it and try it out. Let's inspect the page and type some random data here. As you saw, it showed submitted, but it refreshed the page. So if we click again, it will refresh the page. This is not something that we want. To do that, we need to pass the event here, which is a E, and we need to prevent default. This will prevent the default behavior of the submit function. Now, if we go to the page and click the submit button, you can see that it logs submitted. There is also another thing that we need to change. We'll have a lot of forms in the future, and it doesn't make sense to add this line on every function that we create. Luckily, Vue has already a predefined method for that. We just need to add .prevent here. And this will prevent default by itself. Let's try it now and refresh. Type sign up and it console logs submitted and the page does not refresh. Now we need also to get the input values. To do that, we need to add another property here called data. I will store all the variables that this component will use. To create the variables, we need to return brackets, and here we will return every variable that we need. First name, I will initialize it as an empty string. Last name, also an empty string. Email, password, and password confirm. Keep in mind, in Vue there are some properties that need a colon and some that need parentheses. Keep in mind to distinguish them. Now let's use these variables. Here I will add another directive called vmodel and I will bind it to first name. What does this mean? This means that every time we change the input, the value of the input will be assigned to this first name variable and the opposite. When we change the first name, the value of the first name will be set to the input. So this is the binding that Vue already provides for us, and it's really easy. Let's do the same for last name, for email, password, and password confirm. Now let's console log these variables. Let's create a data variable here, which is equal to first name this.firstname. So in order to access these variables here, we need to type this.firstname. Last name this.lastname. Password this.password. Password confirm this.password confirm. And I forgot the email here. Email this.email. For now, let's console log the data. Open the browser and type some data. After clicking sign up, we can see a JSON object. Its values corresponding to the data that we typed. So we are taking all the variables that we need in order to send them to our backend. On the next tutorial, we will use Axios to send the data to our backend. Now that we got all the data, we need to post our data to our backend. To do that, we need to install another package called Axios. Write npm install axios --save to save it to our package.json. Axios is a package that can be used by sending GET and POST requests to our server. Now that it is installed, let's import it and use it. Right here, import Axios from Axios. Now let's use Axios to post to our backend. Axios.post. Now we need to write the URL of our register endpoint. http://localhost port 8000/register. And the second parameter is the data parameter that we need to send in our backend call, data in our case. Now this is a promise, and to wait for the promise to resolve, we need to type then. And for now, we'll console log the response. And when an error happens, we need to catch the error. For the moment, we will just console log the error. So this is basically how Axios sends POST requests. Post to this endpoint with the send parameters, then we wait for the response here in case an error happens. It will trigger this catch. Let's try it now on the browser. Open the network and now create a test user. Let's click sign up now. And you can see that we got an error because the email has already been taken. Let's create another user with another email. Type sign up. So the data has been sent successfully and we got back the right response. If we go to the console, we can see that the console log happened here with an error. That is triggered here. And this other console log is triggered here, because the response was successful. So this request works fine. Now let's do some refactoring. First, we don't want to type localhost port 8000 every time we request a URL, because we know for sure that every request will have this prefix. So let's cut this code for now and create an Axios configuration file. I will call it axios.js. Here let's import Axios from Axios and write Axios default space URL equals to URL that we want. This means that every URL that we request will add this prefix. Now let's import Axios or the configuration that we created here. Import axios.js. We don't need the parameter because we are just importing the folder. So this is basically it. We now do the request without adding the prefix. There is also another refactoring that we can do. It is by using async and wait keywords. The newer version of JavaScript now supports the sync and the wait. They are extensions of promises and they will make our code look much more nicer. Let's try it now. To use them, we need to add a sync in front of this function. This tells that this function is a promise now and has a call that needs to wait, which is this one. Now we don't need to add then and catch here, so we can remove them. And this can be switched with await in front of Axios. So let's create a variable response, which is equal to await Axios, post to the register endpoint with this data. So this is how we get the success response. Let's cut this code here to make it more readable. So our code now looks much more nicer. Let's console log the response and try it out on the browser. Let's create another user. Click sign up. So the registration works as expected and works successfully. If we go to the console, you can see that we are still console logging the result, corresponding to this line here. So I would prefer this way instead of the traditional way of waiting for the promise. Now that we registered, we want to log in with our user. After the user is registered, we want to redirect him to login page. The way to redirect in Vue is to use this $router.push/login. So when our response is successful, we will get redirected to login route. Let's go to login route now. And now let's add our login credentials to our backend. First, add the data, return email, which is initialized to empty, and password empty string 2. We want to use them as a V model here. We also want to submit the form, so type submit.prevent to prevent the default behavior. So the page won't refresh. Handle submit. We will create that function here. Two methods, handle submit. Here we will call our backend to log in our user. So we need to import Axios from Axios. And let's make this function async. Create a variable response which is equal to await Axios post login. And now we need to add the data. The data are email, this.email, password, this.password. And let's console log it. Go to our page. You can see that we have an error. So this response here is never used. For now, let's remove it. Now let's go to our login and console log. Write an email and a password. We can see that the login is successful. We get the token here. We also get the user. So we successfully logged in. Now we want to use this token to get our current logged in user. First, we need to store it to our app. The way to store it is to use local storage. So let's go to login.vue and let's use local storage set item. Token response.data.token. So now we stored our token and we want to use it. To use it, we need to call our user endpoint to get the current logged in user. We can do that in the home page where we'll display the message hello and username and password. Let's do that. Add a property created. This will trigger when the component is created, and we need to call now Axios to get the current logged in user. So let's import Axios from Axios. Let's make this function async. And response equals await Axios get user. And console log the response here. But this won't work because we didn't set the token on the headers. So if we go to the home page, we can see that we are getting the unauthenticated error message. To add the variable on the headers, we need to add another parameter here, which are the headers, and the header will be authorization bearer concatenated with local storage getItem token. If we refresh the page, we will get the current logged in user. Now we need to add this header to every request that we want the user to be logged in. And this is not a good practice to repeat the same code every time, to add it to every request. So in order to simplify this, let's go to our Axios and add another line here. Axios defaults headers common, so this will be the common header for every request. Authorization. And let's copy this line here and add it here. So this will automatically set our headers without the need to add them on every request. Let's go to home and let's remove this line here. Open the browser and we can see that we are still getting the current logged in user, which is what we want. Now that we successfully logged in, let's display the first name and last name here in the hello message. Let's create a variable user in the data property. Return user. I will initialize it null. And here, when we get the response, let's set user response.data. Now that we got the user, let's add it here with an if condition. So if the user is set, then we display hi, user.firstname, user.lastname. So vIf is similar to an if statement, and this line here will show only when user is not null or not false. Then the way to show variables in Vue is by using double curly brackets. So we are showing here user.firstname. So the first name of the user, and here we are showing the last name of the user. In case user is null, we put here if not user. So this means the opposite of the above line. And here we will show you are not logged in. Let's open the browser and we got an error, because the template route requires exactly one element. The reason is that we added two elements inside the template route. Let's add another div here. Let's open the browser and now it shows hi AA. So this is the first name of this user and this is the last name of this user. Now we want to add a logout button here. But before we do that, we need to make this button clickable, because right now they are not working. Let's go to nav component and we need to change these anchor links here. We cannot replace them with, for example, here in login with just /login, because this will refresh the page. It will redirect to the exact page, but if you see the page got refreshed, click it again and again, it got refreshed. So this is not the behavior that we want. To redirect without refreshing the page, we need to use router link and replace href with 2. This will redirect us to login page without refreshing. Let's do the same thing for sign up. Router link to /register. And let's change it here too, for the main page. So now we are at the login page. We go to the sign up page and the page didn't refresh. Let's go to login page again and then to home page. Everything looks to be working fine. There is one more redirect that we need to add. On login page, when we successfully log in, we need to get redirected to the main page. Go to login.vue and here add this $router.push to the main page. Let's try it now by trying to log in with our user. So we successfully got redirected to the main page. Now let's add the logout button. Now that we are logged in, we need to add the logout button here on the headers. Let's do it. Let's go to home.vue and we want to add the same thing here on our nav.vue. But this is not a good practice, since we are duplicating the code, and on both components we will call this request. Luckily, both of them have the same parent component, which is app.vue. So let's move that code here and pass via property the logged in user. Let's cut this code here and go to app.vue and paste it. Let's go again and now cut Axios and paste it here. Now everything is the same, but we don't have the user variable now. But there's a way to pass it from our parent component to this component, and is to use custom directives. We will use it here, so user is equal to user. So this is a custom directive we are assigning, and this is the data that we want to pass to this directive. Note that we are passing to the router view. It means every component here will have access to this user, but they can use it or not, depends if the component needs the logged in user. Let's go to home.vue now, and the way to access the user that is assigned by the parent is like this: props, now open an array, and here user. So the properties that we are getting from our parent is the user property. Let's open the browser. Now everything works similar to the beginning. Now let's pass the same directive on our nav. User equals to user. Now let's go to our nav and add here props user. Now that we have the current logged in user, we can make an if statement here. If, this will show if the user is not set or if it's null. Let's copy and paste it again. And when the user is set, we will show a logout button. Let's open the browser. And now we are showing the logout button, but it's not functional. Actually, we are redirecting to login page. So let's make some changes. This should be not here. And let's change it to an anchor link with href javascript void 0. This means that when we click this link, nothing happens. So if you go to our home and click logout, nothing will happen. Now let's add a click listener here. Click equals to handle click. And add methods here. Handle click. Now when we click logout, we want to remove our token from our local storage. So write local storage remove item token. And we will be logged out. We will also need to redirect to the main page. Now, if we click logout, nothing will happen, but if we refresh, we can see that we are not logged in. So the logout functionality works fine, but still we need to refresh the page. So this is not our optimal solution for our problem. The optimal solution is by using Vuex. Let's do that in the next tutorial. We agreed that this is not the best way to handle when the user is logged in or logged out. The best way to handle it is by using Vuex. Let's install it. Type npm I vuex --save. Vuex is a state management library similar to Redux in React. It serves as a centralized store to all the states of our app. Let's now create a new file called vuex.js Here we will add all the Vuex configuration. Let's import Vue from Vue. Now let's import Vuex from Vuex. Now we want Vue to know about Vuex. And we want to create our state. For now we'll have only the user, and I will initialize it as null. Now we need to create the store, which is equal to new vuex.store. And it will have a lot of parameters. In the end, we will export default store. So we will export the store. Now each Vue store has the state in the beginning, has getters, actions, and mutations. So they are used like this. Getters are for getting the current state value, actions are for changing the value of the state, but they are not changed on the action itself. They are changed on the mutations. So when we do an action, we call the mutation to change the state. And we can get it via the getters. Let's see how it works in practice. For the getters, I will just create user getter that has a state and return state.user. So this is pretty simple. We will get the current value of the user, which in this case is null. Now let's create a mutation first before the action. Mutation is pretty simple. We'll have the user and state and user. So in this case, we will just set the state.user equals to the specified user. So this mutation will change the state and this getter will get the state.user. The way to change this mutator is by the action. So let's add the action now. User will have a context and a user. Here the way to trigger this mutation is by using context.commit. The method will be user, so is this user here, and the value will be user. So this is the simplest way to handle the user in our app. When an action happens, we commit the change to our state, and this mutation will catch that event and will change the state. And the getters will just get the current state. Let's see how it's used on our app. Let's go to login.vue. And here, when we log in, we want to dispatch the event that the user is logged in. So here use this.store.dispatch. The function that we want is user and the value is response.data.user. So this is how we trigger an action here. This dispatch here will trigger this function here. That will trigger that mutation. Now let's go to our app.vue. Here we specify that the user is null, and when we get the response, we send the user to the response. Let's do the same thing, but in this case we don't need the user. We will just use this.store. Dispatch again user, response.data. We don't need these properties anymore, we can remove them. Now that we remove the directives or the custom properties, we have to get the current user via the state now, instead of the property. The way to do it is by importing the getters. So I will import map getters from Vuex. And how to use the getters is by adding another property of Vue. Compute it. Here we will add ... map getters user. So this is the correct syntax to get the user getter. Let's do the same for the home.view. Let's import the getters here. Map getters from Vuex. Let's remove the props here and add computed. ... map getters user. Let's see it on the browser now. So we got an error. Let's check what's wrong. Okay, I guess the reason is that we forgot to import Vuex on our main app. So let's import here the store from Vuex. And here use the store. So it works fine now. Let's try to log in. We can see that we got redirected to our page and this message is changed. And we also got the logout button as well. When we click logout, still nothing happens because we haven't changed that. Let's go to our nav.view. And when we click logout, we need to dispatch this store dispatch user now. So the user is set to null now. Let's go again, but now we are logged out. Let's go to login again. And when we click logout, it says you are not logged in, and the header is changed. So this is how Vuex works. And this is how you create a smooth interface in your app. Now we'll create the forgot and reset password functionality. The first thing we need to do is to add a link here that says forgot password. Let's do it now. In the login component, after the button, we will paste this HTML. Forgot password. This is just a router link that points to forget component. This is how it looks like. Now let's create the forgot component. In the components folder, create a new file called forgot.view. Let's add template and scripts. Inside the template, now paste this HTML. This is a simple form with a forgot password title and just an email as an email input and a button for submit. And let's export it. Export default name, which will be forgot. Now let's add it to our router.js. Add a new path /forgot component forgot. And let's import it here. Let's open the page and click forgot password now. We can see that we are getting redirected to the right page. Now let's add some functionality. Go to the forgot component and here add submit.prevent. Handle submit. Here, add methods, handle submit. We need also an email, so here we will add data, return email, which is initialized as empty. Here, add a vModel for the email. Now let's make this handle submit async, because we'll use now Axios to send a request to the server. Const response equal await axios.post forgot, and the post parameters will be just the email. So email this.email. For now, just console log the response. I will open the mail catcher interface here to check if we get an email when we submit the form. Let's try it now. Type the email we used to log in and submit it. And we can see that we successfully got an email with a message, change your password here. The URL is localhost port 3000/reset with a token. Let's create that component now. In the components folder, create reset.vue. And add template and script. In the template now, paste this HTML, which is a simple form with a reset password title and a password and password confirm input, and a button to submit the form. Now let's export this component. Name reset. Go to our routes and also add it here. Path reset, and this time we will have a token. So we need the token in our URL. To create this component, reset. And here reset. Go to reset.vue component and let's do the same. Add submit.prevent, handle submit. We need password and password confirm. And also add handle submit here. Add vModel for password and vModel for password confirm. Here make the method asynchronous and also import Axios. Now let's call Axios, const response equals await axios.post reset, and data will be password this.password. Password confirm this.password confirm, and we need an extra parameter, which is the token. And we can get the token from our URL. To get it from the URL, use this .route.params.token. This will get the token from our URL. In the end, when the response is OK, just console log the response and we will redirect to the login page. Let's try it out. So this URL that we opened recently now works fine. And now let's console log first and write a new password. I will write a new password here, submit, and I am redirected to the login component. Now I am getting response here, which is successful. This is from this console log here. Now if I try to log in with the email and the new password, everything will work fine and I will successfully get logged in. Now that we completed everything, there is one last thing we need to take care of. What happens when an error happens? So let's type the wrong email and password on the login form. We can see now that nothing happens. But we need to show an error on top of this that the email and password are incorrect. Let's do the changes in our code. Go to login component and wrap this request with a try-catch statement. We will catch the error here. So what will we do with the error? For now, we will just display a message here on the header. Let's write div class alert, alert danger, and the role alert. And here let's add a new variable, error. And let's show the error here. So in case we get an error, let's see this error is equal to invalid username password. And we want this message to show if the error is set. Now let's open the browser and you can see that we don't see the error. If we type a wrong email and password combination, you can see that we got the error invalid username and password. Let's do the same thing with the other components. But first, before doing that, I will create an error component. I will create an error component because this code will be duplicated a lot. Let's go to the components and create error.vue. Here, add a template and script. For the error, let's cut this code and paste it here. We do not need a v-if here. And here export default. Name will be error. We also need props, because we will pass the error via the properties. Now let's import the error. Type import error from error. And here we will have components error. Let's add it here, error with an error which is equal to error. This is how it looks like. Let's open the page and we can see that we have an error here. We forgot to add a column here. So we still see a red line because we need to add a v-if here, if the error is set. Now the page looks fine. If we type a wrong email, it will say the same error message. Let's copy this component now and add it to the other components. Let's go to the register, paste it here, add an error parameter. And try catch here. And inside the catch write this.error equals to error occurred. We also need to import the component. Copy this line and paste it here. Also copy these lines and paste them here. Now if you go to the register page, fill some data here, type submit, and you will see the message error occurred. We can do this thing for all the components, but you get the idea. Now there is one last thing that we need to add, and we need to add a success message when the email is sent. Let's go to the forgot password and add here message. And let's copy the same line for our error component. But let's change one thing, from alert danger to alert success. And add an if condition message. So if a successful response happens, we will just say this.message equal to the email was sent. And now let's add the error also. Add the error here also. This error equals to error occurred. Let's go back to our login. Copy this and paste it here. Copy this line too and paste it here. And last thing we need to copy is this one and paste it here. So in the beginning we don't have any message. If we write the wrong email here, an error happens. When we write the right email, well, I made a mistake here that I show the errors, so I would show the message here. And when we set the message, we need to set the error to an empty string. And to do the same thing here. So let's write the right email. And now write another wrong email. Everything works fine. Thank you for watching this tutorial and do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more upcoming videos.